After being pushed into the water, I finally awakened. It turned out I was nothing more than the foolish, devoted friend in the boudoir of the female lead. Out of misplaced kindness, I had begged my father to take her in, a low-born orphan of a collateral branch. And in return, not only did she entangle herself ambiguously with my elder brother, she even secretly pledged herself for life to my fiancé, while smearing my name beyond redemption. Though she schemed to make me appear heartless, ill-tempered, and dull-witted, she still so kindly introduced her most loyal bodyguard, the second male lead, to me, pushing me to sever ties with my own parents over a man who never held any affection for me. Until, at last, she took my blood to cure her illness, and I died a miserable death. Only then did that man finally hold my hand, lowering his gaze to me. Yuan, you have suffered in this life. I swear I will take good care of Song Ning for you. When I opened my eyes again, the female lead, tears streaming down her cheeks, was urging me to forgive the culprit who had shoved me into the water. A strange, splitting headache seared through me as I gradually came to. The maid had already changed my clothes. When they saw I'd awakened, everyone in the room regarded me with their own hidden thoughts. Liang Song Ning feigned gentle reproach as she held my hand, looking as if she resented that I didn't strive harder. Yuan, you have parents and kin to protect you. Zhan just lost her mother, she was bound to be distraught. I, too, have no relatives, no one to rely on. I can understand her difficulties. I raised my brows in cold amusement. So what you're saying is, father and mother have treated you poorly. All these years, you've still thought of us as outsiders. Liang Song Ning, an orphan of some remote collateral line, had never had any real claim to our household. Yet in food, clothing, and all else, she was never given less than I, the legitimate eldest daughter. The whole capital knew how well my parents treated her. My parents' faces darkened instantly, disappointment flooding their eyes as they looked at Liang Song Ning. No, that's not what I meant, Liang Song Ning stammered, her eyes reddening pitifully. I've always seen uncle and this whole family as my own. Yuan, why would you suddenly say such hurtful things? Zhan is truly so pitiful. Pitiful. That same pitiful, helpless girl now said the vilest words to me. Song Ning, don't waste your breath on her. That venomous bitch Song Yuan deserves to die in pieces. You saved my father, fine, I am grateful. But if it weren't for her blocking the way, how could my mother have died wretchedly in prison? I only regret that I can't kill Song Yuan with my own hands. Liang Song Ning's expression flickered, and she raised her voice. Wei Zhan, enough. This can't be blamed on a Yuan. My fiancé, the man who once vowed he would love only me, now glared at me with undisguised hatred. Princess of Xianhe, why must you make things difficult for Miss Liang? Of course, she wouldn't dare let Wei Zhan continue, because the person who actually saved Wei Zhan's father was never her at all. More than once, Liang Song Ning had claimed my efforts as her own and took every chance to paint me as cold and heartless. She hid everything I'd done, all while acting as though she'd exhausted herself for others. And I, who rarely listened to marketplace gossip, had no idea how thoroughly my reputation had been blackened. By the time I learned the rumors, how Liang Song Ning was hailed as a compassionate immortal who surpassed me in every way as Princess of Xianhe, she was already clasping my hand with tender affection. Yuan, I only did it for your own good. You're still unmarried. Too much renown may not be a blessing. But I am just an orphan, no matter what I do, it won't tarnish the Song family's name. It was strange, back then, I was like a puppet, devoid of self, believing every word she said. Sometimes I wondered if the person I used to be, so numb, so empty, had ever truly been alive at all. You want me to pity her? Then why don't you pity me, the one who almost died by her hand? I shook off Liang Songning's hand. If you believed we should not harbor grudges, why didn't you tell her the truth, that father and I spent half a month without sleep to overturn her father's case? So there would be no misunderstandings between us. Liang Songning dabbed her eyes delicately. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you cared so much about these things. It was my oversight, I forgot to remind her more firmly. I let out a soft laugh. Indeed, you were careless. My blunt words hit her like a blow to the face. Not only did they leave her no room to twist them into something else, they made everyone present question whether she was truly as sincere as she claimed. This wasn't the first time Liang Songning had acted this way. Once, a close mate of mine stole my jewelry and claimed it was to buy medicine for her ailing parents. When I investigated, I found it was true. But outwardly, I couldn't condone theft, or every servant's family would fall mysteriously ill. So I asked Liang Songning to secretly deliver silver on my behalf and find a renowned physician for the maid's parents. In the end, not only did the credit go to Liang Songning, but the maid became convinced I'd humiliated her, and later tried to kill me by stuffing extra charcoal into my brazier. Wei Zhan lifted her chin, her voice brittle with false bravado. Song Yuan would never have gone to such lengths for me. Song Ning, stop making excuses for her. My father's voice rang cold as he cut in. This matter of your father was indeed something Yuan asked me to investigate. We hadn't intended to publicize it, but you insisted on stirring it up. Even His Majesty can hardly shield him from all his enemies now. My father let out a grim snort. Like my mother, whose face had always been inscrutable, he now looked at me with a trace of pain. Yuan, you tell me, what should be done with this person? Wei Zhan was truly a fool. Not long ago, she had knelt before me, voice trembling. The Marquis holds the power to sway the court. I beg you, Princess, help me see my father one last time. The peace and prosperity of the realm rested upon countless unspoken rules. Even one stray accusation, power-hungry and overreaching, was enough to doom my entire clan. If she hadn't asked, everything could have been quietly arranged. But since she had, there was only one answer I could give. No. The guards took orders only from the token, not from sentiment. I could not help you. Once, someone had stolen my token, and father nearly punished me. Since then, I'd kept it locked away. No one watched it now, but it was still safe. Any fool could hear the warning in my words. Someone, worried Wei Zhan wouldn't catch on, pretended to chat idly with me while hinting pointedly. Princess of Xinhe, you are truly broad-minded. Even if this token were stolen for days before being returned, you would never know. I smiled faintly to deflect it. Don't tease me. Yet Wei Zhan rose abruptly, clutching her skirts, and turned to leave. Until the moment she shoved me into the water, she was still shaking with fury, shrieking. You nobles, all you know is how to use rules and rights to crush people. Do you know that wretched token you treat like a rag? I would have given anything, even my life, to trade it for one last glimpse of my parents. I was silent for a moment. According to the law, harming the descendant of a meritorious official warrants 200 strokes. The servants, understanding perfectly, dragged Wei Zhan away to carry out the punishment on the spot. The days of suffering for the Wei family had only just begun. I had to let Wei Zhan witness it all with her own eyes. Besides, she was still useful to me. The shrill, gut-wrenching screams that rang out were fitting for her venomous heart. Yuan, you shouldn't be so cruel, Liang Songning whispered, her eyes bloodshot as she fainted by my sickbed. In the past, I would have instantly become everyone's target of reproach. But this time, no one spoke up. Instead, some even sighed quietly that Liang Songning had grown too soft-hearted. Falling ill from anger was understandable. Only I saw how her delicate brows had almost knotted into a rope from frustration. What a cheap performance. Liang Songning stayed ill for days, locking her doors and refusing to see anyone, silent as a tomb. Just as I expected, someone eventually came to speak on her behalf. Song Yuan, you're already grown. What are you still being so stubborn for? Song Yu, wearing an expression of lofty disapproval, looked as if he could hardly believe I was his own blood sister. Your parents took in Song Ning precisely so you could learn some kindness from her. How could you be so heartless? This man, who looked at me as though I were his mortal enemy, was none other than my elder brother. He was also one of the supporting characters who admired Liang Song-ning, even though he already had a fiancée. I had met his betrothed, Xiang Lan, once before. She was a truly good woman, gentle and warm to me, yet no easy prey. After they married, Xiang Lan became the target of Liang Song-ning's constant little humiliations, merely because she once wept in frustration over how often Liang Song-ning clung to her husband. To set off Xiang Lan's supposed wretchedness, her fate had been especially tragic. She bore 6 daughters, all of whom ended up married to coachmen, thugs, and ruffians. In the end, unloved by her husband and despised by her children, she died alone in a cold manor in winter, still embroidering a hand warmer for me. Because at that time, no one liked me either, and my hands were cracked from the frost. Meanwhile, this dull-witted brother of mine was celebrating Liang Song-ning's birthday, she who had just become a mother. No matter what, I wouldn't let Song-yu ruin Xiang Lan's life again. I gave a soft laugh and looked at him coldly. Liang Song-ning stayed in the Song household only because I took pity on her and begged father and mother to keep her. This wasn't something I was making up. Years ago, I'd persuaded my parents to take Liang Song-ning in because I'd believed she had saved me from a group of bandits, a life debt. Only after I awoke from that dream did I learn the leader of those bandits was actually her sworn brother, who had attacked us to help her rob my elder sister of her virtue, dragging me into it by accident. Liang Song-ning had realized I was kin to the uncle she meant to seek refuge with, so she deliberately claimed credit for saving me. Song-yu, all self-righteous hauteur, spat out. Nothing but lies come out of your mouth, there's no cure for you. Biao Ji, I called lightly, so you're here too. From outside came Liang Song-ning's sweet, delicate laugh. Song-yu's eyes brightened immediately. Biao Mei, it's Yuaner who went too far, I was just scolding her. Liang Song-ning curved her lips into a pitying smile, the mask slipping back over her face. A Yuan did nothing wrong. It was my carelessness that caused her to follow these past few days. Her birthday is approaching, I even have a gift prepared for her. This is women's business, Biao Ji, you should leave us to it. Song-yu's gaze grew tender. All right. I'll go. Even as he left, he couldn't resist glaring at me. Song-ning is seriously ill. Stop acting like some spoiled little princess. Enough, Liang Song-ning pouted softly. A Yuan is still just a child. Don't speak to her like that. The two of them, one singing the tune and the other harmonizing, nearly exhausted my last shred of patience. What is it? I asked coolly. Liang Song-ning smiled brightly, her eyes flicking occasionally toward the doorway. Do you remember when we visited the temple, and that bodyguard Nan Zhao saved you? You said it was love at first sight. Actually, he found you very endearing too. He's even prepared medicine to visit you. Nan Zhao, come in. Her bodyguard stepped through the door, reluctantly holding a bowl of leftover dregs that barely passed for medicine. Greetings, Princess of Shinha. Anyone with eyes could see his concern was all for Liang Song-ning's health, not mine. Just a bowl of worthless scraps. Biaojia, I said mildly, you can eat whatever you want, but don't speak nonsense. Hearing hurried footsteps outside, I knew I couldn't stall any longer. He's a bodyguard. Saving me was simply his duty. If I were to fall in love every time someone lent me a hand, wouldn't that be absurd? Nan Zhao's temperament was all too familiar to me. As soon as he heard me refute Liang Song-ning's little scheme, he smashed the bowl and stepped forward, ready to strike first. I am my mistress's guard. Since when was saving you my obligation? Had my mistress not cared for you, I would have gladly watched you die without lifting a finger. I let out a quiet oh. And your mistress? An orphan living off others' charity. She invited me to the temple herself. But in the end, only she returned unscathed. Tell me, do you really think she'd have made it back alive? Nan Zhao fell silent. The answer was obvious. Impossible. Drawing his sword, he leveled it at me, eyes bloodshot as he turned to Liang Songning. Mistress, you should not try to push me onto someone else in this way. Today, I'd rather be executed for killing the Princess of Xianhe than allow anyone to insult you before my eyes. I curved my lips in a smile. Oh. Then by all means, go die. They both stared blankly as I staggered to the door, flung it wide, and collapsed into my father's arms, wailing as if my heart would break. Father, Biao Jia brought a strange man in here and claimed I'd fallen for him. I swore it wasn't true, and he tried to kill me. Only then did Liang Songning realize she'd walked straight into my trap. No matter how she scrambled to explain, she could no longer talk her way out of it. Uncle, I didn't mean it. It was just a misunderstanding. But father had seen with his own eyes how Nan Zhao's sword had nearly struck me. He paid no heed to her pitiful excuses. Seize him. Nan Zhao was one of the men who pursued Liang Songning, skilled enough in martial arts that in the past, not even 100 guards could have subdued him. How very convenient. Not long ago, Nan Zhao had been gravely injured while helping Liang Songning gather medicinal herbs. Now he was nothing but a spent arrow, easily subdued. When the guards seized him, Liang Songning screamed herself hoarse, throwing her arms around him from behind. No. I alone caused this, Nan Zhao has nothing to do with it. Uncle, if you must punish someone, punish me alone. Father's voice was stern, not merely scolding for show. This entire matter is your fault. No matter what excuse you give, was it not you who brought this man here? If he dies, are you planning to die with him? Nan Zhao let out a bitter laugh. I lost control and dragged my mistress down to the yellow springs with a wretch like me. Liang Songning blinked dazedly, then slowly, released him. Her forced smile was pitiful. Nan Zhao, I will look after your family. The light in Nan Zhao's eyes gradually went out. What a ridiculous sight. He had thought himself so indispensable in Liang Songning's heart. After all, when I was abducted by assassins after we were married, he had left me to my fate, allowing me to be so gravely injured I would never fully recover, just so he could remain at Liang Songning's side, even though she had no shortage of protectors. But if she truly cared, why had she offered him to me in the first place? Liang Songning dug her nails into her palms, staring at me in disbelief. Yuan. When did you become like this? You feel like a stranger to me. I only ever meant well, yet you planned all of this, just to have Nan Zhao killed. I didn't bother responding. Biao Jia, you're still delirious from your illness. Someone, escort the young miss to the guest quarters to rest. I put deliberate emphasis on the word guest, so she would finally face reality. Thinking back, it was laughable. Once, over a ridiculous bowl of medicinal dregs, I'd actually believed my heart and his were somehow in tune, that I had found happiness. Who would have thought that bowl had been laced with aphrodisiac? I'd been half-conscious when Nan Zhao and I consummated. And Nan Zhao. He'd known all along, yet pretended to be noble and righteous, declaring he was willing to marry me to take responsibility. And Liang Songning. She said that at last, I had found the happiness of my life. That she could finally feel at ease. At ease, so she could marry my fiancé, Xia Yunqi. Xia Yunqi and Liang Songning had secretly pledged themselves to each other long before. But he accused me of breaking our betrothal, of defiling myself before marriage, and used it to coerce my parents into granting Liang Songning all the honors of a legitimate daughter, letting her marry in grand splendor. My parents, bled dry by those two parasites, were forced to wander from place to place in disgrace. This time, their cuckoo's nest would not be so easy to steal. My fiancé, Xia Yunqi. The supposed heir of the Marquis of Liaoxi. But he didn't yet know he was merely an impostor. The true heir was none other than my own guard, Qinyi. In Liang Songning's tale, Qinyi was cast as the darkest villain, a man whose life was ruined when Xia Yunqi's parents deliberately switched their sons. After half a lifetime of misery that never should have been his, he returned, dreaming of reclaiming everything stolen from him. At the banquet where he tried to expose Xia Yunqi's identity, he was shot through the heart by 1,000 arrows, declared to have gotten exactly what he deserved. How absurd. What crime was there in returning what belonged to its rightful owner? I remembered the time I'd flogged Qinyi with my whip. Liang Songning had flung herself between us. A Yuan, how could you? He's a living person. No matter what wrongs he's committed, you can't beat him to death. She scolded me righteously, then turned to Qinyi, voice soft. A Yuan is just being willful. Don't lose your senses because of her. It must hurt terribly. Don't be afraid. Come with me, she won't dare lay another hand on you. I let out a bored click of my tongue, withdrawing my whip. Tedious. Go with her, then. Qinyi brushed her hand away without a flicker of hesitation. He sank to one knee before me, taking my hand and pressing it to his cheek. Princess, a Yuan. Don't abandon me. If he wouldn't bow his head as the fated heroine's loyal subject, he could only be the villain hated by all. When Qinye's quarters were searched, the guards found nothing but a dusty betrothal chest and an old portrait of a woman. The woman was me. I flicked the silver bell at my wrist, summoning Qinyi in his black robes. He knelt as always, a faint smile tugging at his lips. I set my boot on his shoulder, tipping his chin up. You, a shadow guard, daring to harbor such thoughts for your mistress, Qinyi, you deserve death. I kicked him, sending him sprawling. Those beautiful, fox-like eyes looked up at me, shamelessly devoted. Anyone could see he was utterly willing to lose himself with me. Qinyi drew the jeweled dagger from his belt and offered it to me. If the princess wishes it, you may take my life whenever you please. I am willing. I smiled faintly, full of hidden meaning. This princess has no use for your life. But once you replace Xia Yunqi and marry me, I will spare you. A smile curved Qinye's lips. As you command. His methods were far sharper than Xia Yunqi's, but he had no allies. Now, Xia Yunqi's place would not remain his for much longer. When I arrived at my parents' hall, they were quietly discussing what to do about Liang Songning. Mother sighed. If we send her away, I fear Yuaner will be heartbroken. They were always so close. Father, seeing me step inside, quickly tried to change the subject. Yuaner, you're here. Come sit. What would you like for your birthday this year? I pouted, pretending to sulk. I heard everything. Were you still planning to keep it from me? Father tensed, hurrying to explain. We know how dear she is to you. We would never drive your Biaojie away. Did they still think I was a naive child? I sighed with weary resignation. I never imagined she would treat me this way. But if she's done wrong, I can't pretend right and wrong don't matter. Father's expression grew grave. Yuaner, you've truly grown up. I will have a carriage prepared. We'll send her back to the Liang family. When Liang Songning heard, her two loyal protectors came one after another to protest. My foolish elder brother was the worst of them all, Songyu, who would even quarrel with our parents over her. Father, mother, Biaomei has no family to return to. What will she do there? You're ruining her. And my so-called fiancé, unaware that his own ruin was approaching, still had time to play the hero, shielding Liang Songning. The princess of Xinhe always boasted of her deep sisterly bond with Miss Liang. Xia Yunqi sneered, giving me a cold look before turning to comfort Liang Songning. Miss Liang, the capital is vast. Surely there is still a place for you. Your Highness. Liang Songning's eyes reddened, and the two of them exchanged a gaze crackling with such obvious longing it was hard to imagine what they would do if left alone. What harm did I ever do her? Father, stunned speechless by Song Yu's accusations, suddenly seemed to reconsider ever placing his trust in this son. From the day she set foot in our household, she had everything: food, clothes, respect, never one whit less than your sister. If she had no home to return to, perhaps sending her away would be heartless. But she has a home. Am I meant to keep her locked up here for life? Song-yu gave a cold laugh. And you call that a home? Father, since when have you become as cold and unfeeling as my little sister? If you force Biao Mei to leave, then I will leave with her. Wretched boy. Father clutched his chest, trembling with rage. Fine, go, then. And don't ever come back. But Song-yu, oblivious to any sense of shame, went further still, trying to threaten him. Without me, the Song family will die out. There will be no heir to carry on the name. He had chosen precisely the one thing father could never be coerced by. Father let out a brittle laugh, eyes filled with disappointment. He rested a hand on my shoulder. You seem to have forgotten you have a sister. If you cast her aside, I'd rather hand the family fortune to an outsider than leave it to a fool like you. Song-yu's face stiffened, but he didn't waver. Biao Mei, let's go. Liang Zongning glanced back and forth between Song-yu and Xia Yunqi, as though torn over whom to choose. At last, she looked gravely at Song-yu. Biao Ji, I will go with you. This was not Liang Zongning's usual style. I gave a slight nod to my maid, signaling her to follow and watch. Sure enough, exactly as I'd expected. The moment they stepped past the gate, Liang Zongning slipped her arm through Xia Yunqi's, casting an apologetic look over her shoulder. Biao Ji, I've thought it over. I can't drag you down with me. Please, go home and make amends to uncle. But she knew perfectly well, once Song-yu set foot outside that door, there would be no going back. With his nature, he would rather be ruined than ever return to beg forgiveness. Song-yu stared in shock. Your Highness, escorting her home is one thing, but bringing her to your residence, this is hardly proper. How do you plan to explain it to my little sister? Xia Yunqi regarded him with pitying condescension. Feelings arise by fate, not design. As for the Princess of Xinhe, I will find a time to explain everything to her. But with the betrothal still binding him, Xia Yunqi couldn't very well bring Liang Zongning straight into his household. He had no choice but to install her in a rented house outside the city. That night, the two of them, like dry tinder meeting flame, tied themselves together irrevocably. While Xia Yunqi was losing himself in Liang Zongning's embrace, Qinyi was quietly reclaiming his identity at the Xie household. The Marquis of Liaoxi remained evasive, never quite acknowledging it, and Xia Yunqi decided Qinyi wasn't enough of a threat to take seriously. Confident in his position, he spent more and more time with Liang Zongning. Half a month later came my maternal aunt's birthday banquet, Princess Chang'an, who had always doted on me. She reserved the best seat for me to watch the opera, smiling as she pushed plates of candied fruit and pastries my way. I just came back from backstage, she said cheerfully. It seems that famous actor who usually plays Chang Ying isn't here tonight. My little Yuaner will be disappointed. I popped a sugared plum into my mouth. Actors like Chang Ying are rare, but there are plenty of Guo Huai. Watching execution of Guo Huai will be interesting enough. Execution of Guo Huai, also called the cat replacing the crown prince. I'd even arranged for the troupe to stage this play as her birthday gift. Halfway through the performance, I suddenly murmured. Ah, this is bad. Princess Chang'an looked over, concerned. What is it? I gave a rueful laugh. See how careless I am, wandering about enjoying the scenery. I've misplaced your birthday gift. I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you to send someone to look for it. She chuckled. So that's all, just a missing parcel. Keep watching the play, I'll have someone search for it. She patted the back of my hand reassuringly. But instead of my gift, the servants discovered something else. A man and woman, entangled together without any formal match or consent. The festive banquet dissolved into chaos. I rose to my feet, pausing to instruct the musicians. Keep playing, Marquis Song's household will pay you extra. And where was Xia Yunqi at that moment? He was busy with Liang Songning, of course. Not that it was entirely their fault. Under the influence of aphrodisiac, few people could resist. Still, to fall for such a simple trap. Xia Yunqi was beyond saving. After 2 buckets of cold water were poured over them, they finally regained a shred of composure. Xia Yunqi's first act was to pull a robe over Liang Songning and glare at me. Princess of Xinhe, what painstaking malice you've shown, to scheme so thoroughly against me and Songning. I buried my face in Princess Chang'an's shoulder, weeping miserably. She, of course, would never let such slander pass unchallenged. You dare. Carrying on an illicit affair in my birthday hall, then accusing others of trickery. Do you hear yourselves? Xia Yunqi shielded Liang Songning with righteous indignation. This was no illicit affair. I dabbed my tears delicately. Then what would you call it? If the heir of Liaoxi Marquiate was dissatisfied with the Song family, you might have formally broken our engagement. Why resort to this vulgar display, humiliating both my family and me? Xia Yunqi fell silent for a long time. Then let it be broken. Song Ning has always been the only wife in my heart. Their scandal swept through the entire capital. Everyone assumed I must be sobbing in heartbreak, unable to eat or sleep. If only they'd known, I was overjoyed to finally hold the reins in my own hands. After buckling under the weight of public outrage, the Marquis of Liaoxi himself came to my door to apologize. Head bowed low, he dared not look me in the eye. My son was blinded by folly. I have looked into it, she is no lawful wife, merely a kept woman who will never set foot in our household. Princess, rest assured. Xia Yunqi, for his part, still fancied that I was pining hopelessly for the childhood bond between us, clinging to a marriage that, by now, was little more than an empty title. Father sighed. What he's done is disgraceful. I won't force you to maintain the engagement. Whether you keep or break it, the choice is yours. Because our betrothal had been decreed by the emperor himself, it could not be dissolved so easily, even if Xia Yunqi had already shamed himself. When I expressed my wish to keep it, the Marquis of Liaoxi exhaled in relief. I calmly sipped my tea. But the groom must be changed. The Marquis stared at me, dumbfounded. I don't understand. I smiled with quiet finality. Must this princess explain it in simpler words? After all these years, Xia Yunqi had done much for the Liaoxi household. The Marquis had feelings of paternal affection. But in truth, the only reason they'd hidden Qinye's existence was fear I would discover Xia Yunqi was an impostor and cancel the engagement. Now, I knew everything, and still agreed to proceed. One scandal could erase 1,000 merits. And with the true son proven more capable than any adopted whelp, the choice was obvious. The Marquis sighed. I understand. Marquis, never forget. What belongs to the rightful owner must be returned. To his credit, he was efficient. Within 3 days, everything was settled. Xia Yunqi wanted one last grand wedding for Liang Songning at the Liaoxi estate, but the Marquis forbade it. They were forced to hold a shabby banquet in a rented courtyard. The capital's nobles, ever skilled in reading the winds, stayed away. With no other option, Xia Yunqi invited commoners to fill the seats, so the affair wouldn't look so pathetic. I brought Qinyi along to witness the final act of this farce. Once, Liang Songning should have stolen the bridal gown meant for me and left in glory. Now, she wore a faded, yellowed wedding robe, her face wan and hollow with exhaustion. Liang Songning regarded me warily. Song Yuan, haven't you ruined me enough already? I've lost everything, did you come just to watch me make a fool of myself? You shouldn't say that, Qinyi interjected, scooping up a handful of copper coins and tossing them into the wedding basin as a token gift. At least you still have each other. You always wanted Xia Yunqi, a yuan has given him to you. Or was it never Xia Yunqi you loved, but only the title of heir? Xia Yunqi said nothing. His expression was twisted, difficult to read. Your Highness. Liang Congning whispered. Am I really that sort of person? If anyone would know, it should be you. That familiar way she addressed him, Your Highness, was a deadly blow. Xia Yunqi's already sour expression darkened further. I hadn't noticed when the crowd had gathered, but by now, curious onlookers surrounded us. How black-hearted you nobles are. Someone shouted. Even on Miss Liang's wedding day, you come to cause trouble. Miss Liang is so kind, how could anyone hate her? Heaven truly has no eyes. With us here, you'll never hurt her again. The credit she stole from me had become a weapon she now used to wound me further. Finally emboldened by the sympathy, Liang Congning broke into sobs before them all. Princess of Xinhe, love cannot be suppressed. We have nothing left. Please, let us ordinary people live in peace. I rolled my eyes inwardly and stepped aside, giving way to the person forcing through the crowd. Wei Zhan appeared, clad in rags, her voice shrill with desperation. Congning, save my father. He's been falsely imprisoned again, only you can help him. Liang Congning's lips trembled, but no sound came. She could barely save herself. With no one else's accomplishments left to claim, what could she possibly do now? The goodwill of the crowd was a double-edged sword. Their adulation had now become the pyre they set her upon. Miss Liang, help her. Look how pitiful she is, surely you, with all your abilities, can do something. Yes, she forced out, voice quavering, I'll help her. But her smile stiffened, and she leaned close to whisper urgently. Miss Wei, it's not that I won't help you. I'm powerless now. Please, don't force me, stand up. Force you. Wei Zhan, ever the fool, raised her voice so everyone could hear. The arrow named hypocrisy struck Liang Congning square between the eyes. How could she say one thing and do another? Someone muttered. All those fine words, just for show. If she didn't have even a little power, how did she have money to build houses and feed the poor? Whose merit did she steal? Liang Congning crumpled to the ground, sobbing into her palms. I didn't. Even at this point, she still clung to denial. Xia Yunqi stood silent for a long moment before finally roaring. Wei Zhan. Have you not made enough trouble? Wei Zhan bowed her head, weeping. Then, without warning, she lunged at Liang Congning, a thin blade flashing from her sleeve. It's all your fault. If you hadn't told me to make a scene, my father wouldn't be imprisoned. The truth was simple. Wei Daren's earlier charges were a way for the emperor to discreetly investigate the real culprit. Liang Congning, desperate for glory, had publicly seized credit, pressuring Wei Zhan to stir up more noise so she'd appear indispensable. The true mastermind was no fool. When the time was ripe, they slapped Wei Daren with a charge so grave no one could save him. Xia Yunqi kicked Wei Zhan aside, but not before her blade left its mark. Liang Congning slumped unconscious, her cheek gashed nearly to the bone. More blows rained down, severing her womb and ensuring she'd never bear a child. What remained was a disfigured face to keep her company through long, filthy nights. Even bloodkin would tire of such a burden, let alone a man who once claimed deep love. Later, Xia Yunqi came to see me. He wore coarse, patched clothes. His hands were thick with calluses from hard labor, and he looked like an old man long broken by life. A Yuan, I regret it all. Every day, I live in that foul little house, serving a woman who curses and spits on me. I can't understand how I was ever bewitched into throwing everything away. If only we could begin again. Just once more, just once, we could live happily. Just as I was growing tired of his lament, Qinyi suddenly made a strangled sound, one hand clamped over his mouth as if he'd vomited blood. I couldn't help but laugh. What are you doing? Qinyi sighed dramatically, his expression pained. Princess, forgive me. I'm feeling a little nauseous. Could you grant me some medicine? Xia Yunqi stared blankly for a moment, then turned and shuffled away, shoulders bowed. On the day I married Qinyi, a beggar paused at the gates of the Marquis' estate, hand outstretched. His voice was a hoarse croak, impossible to understand. Curious, I lifted my veil, and met a pair of familiar eyes. Song Yu hurriedly smeared ashes across his face and fled in shame. It seemed the illustrious young master Song had not fared well in the mortal world. Perhaps at last he understood how laughable his so-called noble bearing truly was. Xiang Lan passed him by, her belly gently rounded with child. At her side walked a distant cousin, his hand steady at her elbow. "Careful," he murmured. "Lean on me. No more petty squabbles. No more shouting matches over trifles." Xiang Lan looked peaceful. Truly, quietly happy. Not far off, Xia Yunqi stood on, his garments ragged, beard unshaven, his gaze distant as if 100 years had passed. My informants told me that after their wedding, Xia Yunqi and Liang Songning's life was far from bliss. No longer able to hide her temper, she cursed him at the slightest displeasure, hurling anything within reach. At first, he still held some lingering affection. But all love fades. The first time he lost patience, wrapping his hands around her throat, screaming, "Why won't you just die?" There was no going back. Eventually, her dowry bought him a pretty little maid, one who pretended to care for the legitimate wife but tormented her day and night, eager to take her place. Their once passionate, defiant love crumbled under the stink of sickbeds, festering sores, and a beautiful face no one remembered. I sipped warm wine until my head grew light. When I toppled into Qin Ye's arms, I pulled him down beside me onto the bed. Beyond the window, lanterns blazed in brilliant color. I thought, perhaps this time, my life would truly belong to me, and no one else. The end.